Today's problem is dedicated to this lab exam about, let's say if you're given a solid and you're asked to purify it, what process would you use? Now, here's the thing. When they give you a solid that is a herb and they ask you to extract, you would use solid liquid extraction. But if they give you a solid and ask you to purify it, you would use recrystallization. So I want to make a note that extraction, it's about getting the minor product in the solid and also turning that into another phase. While purify is just about getting the major product of a crude compound, of a crude solid. So that would be your difference. So if you're given a solid asked to purify, not extract, if you're asked to purify it, use recrystallization. So we're talking about how to do recrystallization, what it's about. So the big idea is that you get an optimal solvent, okay, so some optimal solvent, which is determined by a previous step of an optimal solvent test, which tests solubility. We are looking for some solvent that is insoluble at room temperature, but that is soluble at a high temperature. This will allow us to create a saturated solution. So that's how we get our solvent test, optimal solvent test. So then the problem is now we put our optimal solvent in on the hot plate, heat it up, and then make the minimum amount of saturated solution possible. So you're adding a little bit of solid in here, just a little bit, and then you want to add just enough solvent to dissolve everything, and no excess solvent, just enough solvent to dissolve everything. So that's your saturated solution to try to make. And the reason why this works for recrystallization is because the impurities will stay in the solution, and as you put it through room temperature, let it cool, and maybe put it in an ice bath. As you put it in an ice bath, so first room temperature and then ice bath, you'll find that crystals start to reform. And those crystals are only your pure compounds, while the impurities stay in the solution because they are not super saturated enough, they're not concentrated enough to be making these crystals. So that's how you get these crystals. That's going to be your pure compound that you will measure with percent purity. But now we want to isolate the solvent from the solid, so we put it in the Buchner funnel and we will filtrate it through vacuum filtration. Here's a tube. So essentially you dump everything in, your liquids are going to be at the bottom and your purified is going to be in the Buchner funnel. And in the end, make sure to calculate the percent purity, which is the crystals you obtained at the end. So these are your pure crystals, divided by your initial mass of the crude compound. So that is whatever you threw in this step here. Whatever you threw in this step. So you would weigh out how much you're putting into this saturated solution. That's going to be your crude product. And your pure product is what you get at the vacuum filtration step. So that's how you would perform recrystallization.